I'm Oprah as a dude, and I love you all.
Great, here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Reyes Reflection podcast. If you want to see what the show is doing, follow me at those socials at I'm Nathanael Reyes. Big thanks to our sponsors, ARAVE Cards, Jocko Fuel, Smackin' Sunflower Seeds, and Mad Rabbit Tattoo Aftercare. Link will be in the episode bio for exclusive deals at those sites. My next guest is one you've probably seen or heard over the last 20 years of your life. From Key and Peele to New Girl, from Bob's Burgers to The Office, from King of Queens to Disney Channel programs, playing everything from a lovable dad of the future to sketch comedy show Mad TV. And if that wasn't enough, he's also shaping the next generation of performers. He's been everywhere, done everything. Please welcome the hilarious, the accomplished Craig Anton. Welcome to the pod.
Yay, thank you. Begin.
I love it. Time is the most generous gift, my friend. Thank you so much for spending yours with me. So I want to learn a little bit more about you. I read that you grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. What was life like growing up over there?
It was, I think, very Midwestern, kind of conservative. I didn't know any different. But somehow my parents were a little tuned in to music and entertainment, whether it was through magazines or television or movies, music. So those things were factors in my life, and big family, and a lot of gatherings, a lot of joking, and therefore it was like, hey, look at me, look at me. So thankfully my parents took vacations, so they exposed us to other places in the country. They never took us out of the country, but so I got to go to Texas and California and New Jersey and New York, and I got to see things. And so that planted a seed, I think, also.
You talked about how you had this dynamic where you're like, hey, look at me, look at me. Were your parents always supportive of your creative energy, or were they like, Craig, if this acting thing doesn't work out, you might want to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever?
Yeah, my father was bigger than life, kind of type A personality, very fun, very gregarious. My mother was very dry. And so they both had great senses of humor. And so I think a lot of it came from that, of trying to steal focus from my father, but also because there were large gatherings a lot. And somehow, I don't know why, I just had that need to be seen or to be laughed at, or to, hey, let's put on a skit or a show or something, grabbing other siblings or other kids in the neighborhood. And so, I really don't know where that came from, because it wasn't until maybe first or second grade that I got exposed to live theater. And I just immediately said, I want to do that. And we were watching children's theater. So we were like, that is cool. I was just enthralled. So it wasn't until a matter of time before I started doing that, finding my way into theater, asking my mom to drive me to auditions. And then, one thing led to another. So, but yeah, the basis of it all started in Omaha, and I have my parents to thank. Yeah,
Absolutely. It's always encouraging when they can see that you have a interest in a topic, a subject, a hobby, fully backing you on that. Because a lot of times when people share that with their parents, right? Like, I mean, I've been there. I said, hey, mom and dad, I want to do this. And it's, well, that sounds great, but you got to also have this in your back pocket. But mine was an unrealistic goal, I would say. It was, hey, I'm going to be a professional athlete, and that was never going to happen.
right.
But
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I share the same thing that everybody shares. The parents, they know stuff. They know show business is not for everybody. It's very difficult. So thankfully, we're all self-delusional enough to give it a go. And then if we get lucky for long enough, we forge a career. But yeah, I think I also had that. And I did a couple plays in high school. I didn't do every play. So I wasn't like your traditional theater kid. I'd done some stuff prior to junior high and high school on stage. Um, but I had that dream and that desire when I went to college. I was like a business major to start out with, mainly because I think I had that parrot on my shoulder, that father's voice saying, you got to do something with your life, kid, sales. So it took me a few years before I transitioned into acting full time, and then again, stand up comedy was a big thing. Even in my tiny town of Omaha, Nebraska, once a week in high school, they had a club that did it. So we all found our way in there, and that was also something that I used to kind of motivate my career early on.
Aside from theater, acting, stand up, did you have any other interests or hobbies besides acting, theater? Like, I want to hear sports.
Yeah. So I played a lot of sports, mainly basketball and tennis, and continued to play basketball when I was on the Warner Brothers lot, and play against George Clooney and Jaime Foxx. And at lunch they'd have pickup games. It was awesome. And then I joined the Hollywood Y and would play there when I wasn't working. Until I started twisting my ankles too many times. I was like, done. But now I play a lot of tennis.
I read that you were 6'5". Is this true?
It's true.
Okay.
Yep.
So you were just up there sky towering over everybody, grabbing every rebound.
Well, that point guard, that 6'5" point guard,
No way. Okay, so Craig was crossing up Jamie Foxx, George Clooney. Yes.
I probably posted up down low for those
Okay.
guys, but I can't handle the ball. But I don't really play anymore. It's like too much on your body. So.
Oh, absolutely. I've had 3 knee surgeries, and I used to love playing basketball. And I laughed because I said I was going to be a pro athlete.
Yeah.
I told my folks I was going to the NBA.
Yeah.
Craig, I'm 5'6", 5'7" on a good day. Wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And we all have our aspirations.
Yeah.
How did you go from Nebraska to Hollywood?
So, as I said, stand-up was kind of a thing. I came up in that huge burst of stand-up in the 80s. And I was working and just doing anything to get on stage to make money. And I was doing a lot of stand-up and a lot of characters, a lot of sketch and whatever. And I graduated college in 86 and ended up working around the Midwest to make money to move to LA. And I was in a club in Des Moines, Iowa, of all places, where somebody was in the audience that saw me, and they basically hooked me up with a college agent who had a ton of work. He said, I've got 14 weeks of work for you starting Monday. Are you available? I said, what's it pay? And so made a ton of money and just rode the rails for a few years doing stand-up in the college market. And then I decided instead of moving to Los Angeles, I would move to New York. So I moved to New York and continued to work in the college market to subsidize, but then also start chipping away at the clubs in New York. And it was there after, I think, 5 years of working and pounding and doing 5-6 sets a night, that I finally got picked up by a manager. And that manager signed me. They had a couple people on SNL, and they were great. They were super knowledgeable, and I trusted them and who their clients were. And then they, shortly thereafter, signing them, said, I'm moving to California. And I knew by what happened in New York, you'd watch, the previous graduating class eventually move to Los Angeles because that's where more of the work was. New York was very small in terms of, what they were doing in terms of shooting and acting. And I knew I was probably a better actor than a stand-up. So that's what I did. I got married and then moved to Los Angeles. And then my first pilot season that I had out there, I booked 2 pilots and both of them went to series, something that not many people can say. So I got pretty lucky pretty quick, but I also got my butt into acting classes. So I took it very, very seriously and learned quickly.
Yeah. Acting's a tough gig. I mean, I've done some classes. I've done some background stuff. I've done some small college films, and it's a tough gig. It's not what everybody thinks it is. It's mentally exhausting. If you're doing a physical role, it's physically exhausting. So, yes, you see everybody on TV and you're like, wow, look at them.
Yeah.
I want to be that. But it's a lot more work than people realize. Like, even my first time on a set, I was like, wait a minute, what's this? Continuity. Like, I'm just learning all these things that I had no idea. I remember there was one where I like had my hands in my pocket, but then I took it out on the next one. I was like, wait a minute, no. They're like, you got to put your hands in. I'm like, what? You're throwing too much at me right now. Yeah, it's a lot more work than people think than just saying stuff and going home. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes. And obviously, if I was on a big major network set, you would have had people that were like, hey, last scene you had your hand in your pocket, you got to put it in.
Right.
I'm just on a small college film, but
Yeah.
it's definitely a lot more challenging. So did you see yourself always on TV, or did you think it was going to be that SNL route?
Yeah, I think everybody thinks when they're in the comedy world, and if they know they can act as well, that's the dream for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, that show. And I was lucky enough to be able to be seen by them, and I auditioned, did a showcase for them, and then got asked to submit sketches. So I moved up the ladder a little bit, but then eventually they took 3 other friends of mine at the time, Jay Moore, Sarah Silverman, and Dave Attell. They took those people during that season, which was fantastic. But to have that opportunity was wonderful, you know, and it's a Dear Diary moment. So through the craziness of a career, I've managed to stay pretty grateful for any and all opportunities. And I think I got a little more grateful as time went on too, you know. I think that helps you become a good professional, good, respectful member of the ensemble. I might not have been that grateful early on. You know, I might have saw my star rising and going, here I go. This is just like I dreamed it. Well, it's like this, you know, it's never a straight uphill trajectory.
Nope, lots of ebbs and flows for sure. And you have to be okay with rejection, and you have to be okay with criticism, right? Yep. Like even yourself, who's really accomplished, you were rejected. And I think that's encouraging for people to hear, because I think a lot of times you think, oh, yeah, they're on TV, they're so successful, but you also had to work and you got rejected at times, and you are successful, but everybody goes through it, because you'll hear people say you're going to be told no a lot. Yeah. And I think sometimes when you see people on TV, you're like, they were never told no. Right. Well, they were. I mean, I'm sitting with one right now. Yeah,
I'm watching a Paul Rubens documentary right now, and it's amazing. I mean, he was the most lovely man ever, and I was lucky to meet him once. He saw me perform, and but his trajectory also prior to, you know, landing on Pee-wee, it's amazing. You know, he lived the life we all live, swinging and in the trenches and working hard and believing in the dream. And so it's another beautiful story.
Yeah. Yep. You were on many major networks such as Disney, NBC, Warner Brothers, you mentioned. Was there a role where you were like, all right, I made it, I did it, I finally see my star rising for what it is, and I'm here now?
Yeah, no. And I don't think any actor would tell you that at any level that they've made it, you know, that they're there where they wanted to be. I don't think there's any amount of any role or any amount of money that would give anybody comfort. They're always going to be wondering. I worked with I'm blanking now, but they have an EGOT, and they were nervous being on set, and I'll think of it in a sec. But so we never know. We can never be certain. We can never be, you know, ready to go and say, well, I'm a star. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are those that really think that, but deep down in their core, they're scared to death.
Really?
Oh yeah. But in terms of roles that I've had fun, that I was grateful to get, I mean, certainly when I booked Mad Men, that was a gift. I just ran into the showrunner on a subway platform, Matthew Weiner, 2 weeks ago. It was crazy, and he recognized me. I recognized him, and we chatted. We took a train uptown together. Just the greatest guy. He has a play in Baltimore that he wrote that is up and hopefully making its way to Broadway. But that was a show that I enjoyed, that I watched, that I feel like that show changed television and held the bar super high. Anyway, very grateful to book a role on that. But then again, everything I ever booked, no matter if it was a stage play or a stand-up gig or whatever, I was like, this is great. This is awesome. So generally
So
pretty thrilled. I will say I did a show with Nick Schwartzen, and that I told my wife, I said, I've never worked so hard for so little. And she reminded me, she said, yeah, but you've also worked very little for a lot.
wow, such a great
Shut up.
perspective.
Shut up, dummy. Yeah.
That's why we need our wives, right, to tell us to shut up and correct us.
I will say that show with Nick was really fun, and I just loved it. I never laughed so hard on a set all my life.
Oh, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's so funny. You worked with some other massive players in the game. Zoe Deschanel, Kevin James, Steve Carell. What was it like to work with some of these incredible individuals, and what were some takeaways you had being on set with these people?
I think you have to have, an awareness of what the vibe is on a set and what the tone is. I did a movie a couple of years ago that just opened this weekend with Rebel Wilson called Bride Hard.
Yes.
And, you're just respectful and you're professional, and you don't necessarily, beg for a selfie. You got to be cool. They're the star, they're number one on the call sheet. So you got to be cool and just, if you happen to be standing next to them at craft service and a conversation begins, and you keep it short and sweet, and you be yourself, but you be professional and respectful always. And if you can do that, then you're going to be fine. But all those people, everybody I've ever worked with, all the number ones, they've been fantastic. Kevin James was a stand-up and just couldn't be any kinder and hilarious. Same with Carell. I mean, these are just massive gifts to be working with hilarious, talented people that are also super nice. But you just got to treat them with respect. I can't think of anybody I've ever worked with. Even Caruso, David Caruso from CSI Miami, just treated him with respect and professionalism, and he did the same with all of us. He was great. And he had a reputation as kind of a guy you wanted to watch out for. But that was a delight to act with him. I did a series called The Girl from Plainville recently, and one of the other actors I worked with was from the show Billions. And after we finished our wrap on our scene, he shook my hand and said, "Thanks for playing with me." And that is such a great, not only comes from the theater, but it's just an acting thing that we do. That's all we're doing is we're playing. We're tossing the ball back and forth, and that's what it's about. So, and to frame it in that term reminds me again, that's what we're doing. We're having fun. We're listening. We're receiving, and hopefully we're giving back with sincerity and spontaneity in the moment.
Yeah, because you get to play these sometimes larger than life characters, or these people that you would never really, in a way, it must for you, bring you back to those younger days when you were like, I remember when I used to have my siblings and my family and do all these these little skits and just have sketches. And so in a way, it brings you back to that where you can be creative, be fun, be professional at the same time. I think that's the best advice that you could give. I remember I was on set for Defending Jacob with Chris Evans, and this was back when he just finished Avengers Infinity War and all that stuff, and so he was red hot. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's Captain America. And the best advice I got was, hey, you're going to be on set with him. Act like you've been there. Be professional. If a conversation strikes up, then you can talk. But don't act like you're, he's, and praise him. And that was the best advice. And you're right. He was so down to earth. It was awesome. We were able to have a conversation. He's from Mass. I'm from Mass. And I remember I could break that barrier a little bit of just kind of being like, hey, I grew up in this town in Massachusetts. He's like, oh, no way. That's 30 minutes away from me. And so we were able to break the ice that way. But so, hey, it pays to know where somebody's from, people. There you go, because you never know.
I did a movie with LL Cool J and Gabrielle Union. And I had some scenes with Gabrielle Union. And day one, we're running the scene and we're shooting the scene, and then the downtime, somehow we get to talk, and it turns out we're both from Omaha.
Yeah.
Little bonding, connecting moment
Yeah.
there. Made it like nice and easy.
Yep.
But for the most part, yeah, you always want to be yourself and trust that you can do it. Trust you got hired, and trust that you know your lines and you've made some choices,
Yeah.
and breathe, and just stand there and tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. You've worked on sketch shows, sitcoms, improv. Do you have a favorite format out of those?
I mean, I like sketch shows because you can take some liberties in terms of writing and adding to what we're doing, the creative process. Sometimes you can bring a little bit more. Generally, the work is heightened and more fun and bizarre. Um, and so you can bring your brand of comedy to it, or bring more ideas, physicality, whatever it is. You can do the same with sitcoms, but you're really trying to honor the script and the writer's intention. We want to try the words first in any genre, but you can also add and bring stuff and show them where there's other places that funny might exist on a sitcom. I like the structure of sitcoms. You come in at 10 and you maybe do a table read the new pages, get it up on its feet, take a break, come back, do another run through, and then do the run through for the writers at the end of the day. And then on Friday, you shoot it. It's kind of a fun process of making a little episode every week. Sketches, you could be on location, you're trying on wigs and wardrobe throughout the week, and then going and they put you in some weird set. So both have positives. I think for me, the sketch stuff was always a little more fun because it was zany and inventive and different all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always something new, right? Whereas, like you said, the sitcom, especially if you're just a day player, you really have to honor what's going on. You can't, you don't want to be bigger than the number one, and you can't really do that in some of those. Yeah,
and
for
as
sure.
a guest star coming into sitcoms, even if you're a funny person, you're often going to be given the role of the setup person. So you need to understand how comedy construction works and how you can tee up that person's, punchline, stuff like that. So these are things you learn over years of, going through scripts and getting on your feet and acting classes, and then on real life sitcom stages.
Yep. Yeah, and you brought up a very good point, and I want to talk about that for a second, because I would see you on Mad TV growing up, and you were this very outlandish, larger-than-life person. And then I would see you on King of Queens, and you're right, you're this punching bag for Kevin James. Like, he's making fun of you, and it's like, oh, no, he can be very funny, too. So You're right, it is this give-and-take industry of where you have to know your place when it is, right? Like, the few episodes I remember, there was one where you were just this weird Neil character, and you got made fun of because you always made these wacky toast. But, like, on Mad TV, you were this hilarious person that they would have highlighted to go ahead and be that main presence in that sketch. So, I like you said, it is a give and take industry, and you have to be able to just read the room, see what your role is, and know it, type of deal. I also recognize you from Phil of the Future. You played a time-traveling dad stuck in the 21st century. How did you land that role?
That was that came to me. I, along with many others, auditioned for the caveman role initially. Just another audition, hey, they want to see you for this thing. I may have met those writers that developed Phil of the Future on Lizzie McGuire. I think they were writers on that show. So anyway, they invited me in. I did the caveman audition. They said, thank you. I got to the elevator. I had to go back to the YMCA to pick up my daughters who were in a swim class. And somebody stopped me, a casting assistant, say, would you mind looking at this other role? Which happens often at auditions. So I was like, I don't want to do this. I got to go pick up my kid. Let me look at it. And I took a couple of minutes, went back in, and these guys were really laughing. And generally, I instruct a lot of my students. They offer you 5 minutes, take 20. Don't we are such people pleasers as actors.
Yeah.
We go right back in and we're not as prepared as we should have been, and we blow that opportunity. So I didn't listen to my advice. I went ahead and went in, and thankfully, months later they called me back. And yeah, a couple more auditions, and then got lucky and booked the part of the dad, and then shot a pilot, and then they tested the pilot for a year and a half or something like that, and then finally picked it up. And then we did the first season, and then they waited a year and a half to shoot the second season. So there's a lot of waiting around, but it was a really wonderful show, wonderful opportunity, and great writing. And whenever I have a pratfall or somebody dumps something on my head, I give a reaction. I said, "Was that too big?" And they were like, "It's the Disney Channel. Go bigger." Yeah. So it was a place to continue to have fun, explore, discover, and also learn, and be grateful every day coming to set. It was a single camera show, so we were really making a little short film every week. It was great cast, great crew, just nothing bad. And again, being a part of the Disney empire, it was just, it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, most definitely. Do fans ever stop you and say, "Oh my goodness, I know you from this role"?
Yeah. All the time. Yeah.
What's the one that you would say they always go to?
It's Phil of the Future. I get a lot of people that recognize me from that, or The Office.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes New Girl. Often I will tell people, you probably recognize me from Bob's Burgers, and nobody gets that joke. How could you? Anyway, yeah, it's different things all the time. It's kind of strange, but Phil is probably up there.
I wore my Office shirt for you today.
Oh, nice.
This is the Scott's tie. I know that's not the same episode, but that's the only. You now have transitioned as an educator of sorts at SCAD. How did this happen, and what compelled you to want to help the next generation?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I've had to think about it myself, but once I moved to California and I started studying, I started with Ivana Chubbuck Studio, and I was kind of mesmerized by the work that I saw. I think I had an agent that said, "I've heard this studio's good." And she'd been up and running for, I think, a couple of years. And I went to a master class Thursday night thing, saw the work, listened to her, work with the actors. And I was like enthralled by the whole process, and mainly by the work. The work of the actors was at such a level. They were all in, and they were throwing stuff and breaking stuff and going after each other. It was competitive and exciting. So I think that was the coolest thing, was being in there and watching good work that you would never see on TV or on films. And this is how we, find more of our expression and also find ways of working as getting in class. So anyway, I immediately started booking for whatever reason. It was probably because I worked hard at my auditions. So from that, I had a lot of stand-up friends that would start coming to me, and they would coach with me. They would say, "Will you work on this audition with me?" So that's really where the teaching began. And then years later, after doing a million things and wanting to supplement my income, I think I saw UCB was coming to town from New York. And so I approached them, and they said, "Yeah, you could teach a class." And so I taught an on-camera comedy class for them. And then after that session was over, I was like, "I need more money." And they said, "This is how we do it. This is our contract." And I said, "Okay." So I hung my own shingle, started teaching my own classes, and started doing workshops and started traveling and doing all kinds of stuff, and really became a self-taught teacher. And then at one point I was up in Montana teaching, doing a summer thing, and I met somebody that was in grad school, and they were in a program in Long Beach, California, at Cal State Long Beach, which was a specialized 2-year grad program that was working with mid-career professionals who were looking to teach. So I investigated that, went down, met them, and threw myself into that, and then ended up becoming an adjunct teacher there. And I was lucky to get into USC, and I was an adjunct teacher there. I taught at AMDA. And then I was also interviewing and kind of looking to stay on the West Coast for, associate professor gigs. And then one time a buddy of mine came and said, hey, there's a school in Santa Fe. I told them about you. You should apply. So you go online, find the thing. And underneath that was Savannah College of Art and Design. So I clicked them both, sent off stuff, and Santa Fe never called. Savannah called, and I started learning more about Savannah College of Art and Design. And I was kind of blown away. The people that are running this program that are still my bosses are outstanding. And they were, tell everybody, they're like people I'd meet on the Sony lot. They knew the industry. They were part of the industry. They had careers. And they were bringing that knowledge and enthusiasm and imagination to the program at SCAD. And I'd never been to Savannah. In all my travels of doing stand-up, I've been all over the country. And Savannah is like this cool place. So I was lucky enough to get an offer and thrilled enough to, again, bring my skill set to a real university setting. And that's when I really became a full-time professor and was offered so many wonderful opportunities. I got to teach in the south of France at our campus in Lacoste for the first 2 summers. I got to teach in Hong Kong. We have had a campus there. I got to go there a couple times. I've done everything and anything, worked on student films, which mirror the industry. And 2 years ago, I was offered the opportunity to become associate chair in Atlanta. So now helping drive the program here in Atlanta. And we keep growing exponentially here because the industry is in our backyard here. So we've got a lot of students here, and it's really fantastic. And we're directing live shows, plays, productions, as well as shooting things and learning the value of on-camera acting. So thrilled that I have a gig, thrilled that I'm still auditioning, still working on occasion, and now in this new life at my age in Atlanta.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you are still able to do auditions. I know you just talked about the movie with Rebel Wilson, but I was going to ask, are you still able to, if you're like, hey, I'm going to go for this, and they let you do that?
All the time, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, whether I book it or not, that's the question. Yeah, so I'm auditioning all the time and working once in a while.
Yeah, and you're right. A lot of people film in Georgia, right? Mm-hmm. That's why you see the Peaches made in Georgia. You know, that's like a big thing down there. Yeah. Do you find that teaching helps keep your own acting sharp?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm in it 24/7. I'm inventing new exercises. I'm watching people, discover things, and we're tweaking and shaping all the time. Yeah. So, and then I'm also, teaching a lot of on camera. So I'm reminded every day of, how to use the camera, how to be aware of it, and also how to, do what I did in all my acting classes, which is make choices, work from here.
Yeah. As someone who's seen every side of this industry, writing, acting, directing, now educator, what's something aspiring entertainers should start working on if they want to get into this field?
Well, I mean, everybody talks about how the industry is changing now, since the strikes. It's trying to figure out how to come back. Yeah. It's going to come back. So what I remind my students, and I firmly believe this, is, we're on a new path. And so our students are going to be at the forefront of that path. They're going to be creating new opportunities that are going to be a part of this industry as it, continues to blossom. It could fall back to more of an independent, production style. I don't know exactly. I do know that, we're going to continue to need to tell stories, that there's value in that AI can't quite get at. Yeah. Certainly live, productions. My daughter went to see one of our recent graduates on Broadway in Stranger Things on Broadway. And, the production design side of things for that show is next level. Mm-hmm. So that's going to continue to help tell the story. We're going to continue to find ways of how to light, how to use sound, how to use design. And so I think it's exciting. I think we have to, continue to find our way. It's one thing that I had people yelling at me about when I was a young person coming up in New York and Los Angeles. Don't wait for the phone to ring. Yeah, you've got an agent, but you got to still get to work. That feeds our soul creatively. So we have to continue to find things that inspire us, continue to enliven us, continue to broaden our skill set, whether that's on stage, on camera. So that means writing. That means, creating some fun things that are also pertinent and valuable to, the world today. And what a wonderful time to be creative.
Oh, for sure, right? The world is your oyster. Like, Go ahead and use your creative juices. What's the biggest change you've seen from when you first started to present day in terms of the auditioning process, on set, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in the self-tape world, so you talk to 12 actors, I bet you most of them would tell you, oh, I wish I could be in the room. Wish I could audition in the room. I'm much better in the room. So, self-tape has really changed a lot.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I would say, and this is something our school prides itself in, we are very future forward. Like we have an LED volume set and stage. We don't have one, we have two. So 40 foot wide, 20 feet tall, 20 feet deep. So our actors are training in these environments. That's a forward direction in terms of where the industry is moving. More, production design based shooting. We have a back lot. We have a full back lot in Savannah. I think, understanding how technology is influencing entertainment and the business in terms of auditioning and working on set, you have to have those skill sets now.
And to have technology be your friend and use it. It sounds like your school uses technology as a benefit and not as a crippler. And like, oh man, it's upsetting. When I was younger, I used to just have to do one self-tape or be in the room, and now it's like you have to do 10, 12, and I think it's just because it's simpler, right? Like I feel like it's much on a grander scale for you than me, but I remember I was doing in-person auditions back in like 2018, 2019, and now everything is remote. It is a little different, but I think you have to be aware of that and how to use that for your benefit and not use it as an excuse or for your downfall, if that makes sense, for sure.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and give a younger Craig some advice, what would that be?
I think it would be that to put more effort into creating and taking ownership of your own work, creating more of your own work. Yeah, I think that would be about it. I mean, we all learn by, just doing that. We sometimes hitch our wagons to people that have lofty dreams, and then we waste a year of our life, whether it's writing the next sitcom script or whatever. But while that's important, you just, you got to also follow your own voice, follow your own path. Make good use of your time, surround yourself with winners. I think I did that as best as I could. Your journey is going to be the way it goes often. So you've got to be open to opportunities that come to you. Say yes to more things, I might tell myself. Keep an eye on fear and what that's doing. But for the most part, I would say I'm pretty grateful. I've got a wonderful family, and I've owned homes everywhere. I've got hot running water. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there can always be a worse situation. I love that you said fear, because I remember reading something that said on the opposite side of success is fear. Like, I think a lot of times fear will be in the middle of failure and success. And once we just go through that fear, more often than not, we can have that success, even if we don't get the role, right?
Yeah.
I've talked to other actors, and I speak from myself. There was one time where I really wanted to be the good guy in this short film I did. I auditioned for the good guy. As I'm walking out leaving, they say, "Hey, would you mind reading for the bad guy?" And you have to have an open mind and being like, "Well, I've never done that. Sure, I'll read for the bad guy." And I ended up getting casted for that. So
Nice.
you just have to go for it. You have to go for it. While we wrap up, I'm going to go ahead and add some slides and some pictures on here.
Oh.
And I want you to tell me what you remember being
Okay.
on set that day. All right? They're all pictures of you. Okay, so here we go.
Sweet.
All right, so there you are. What do you remember? What do you remember?
I still have that vest. No,
You still have the best.
one of the fun things was working with Raviv, and just, we would laugh. We would make each other laugh all the time. And maybe I was guilty of maybe making him laugh too often.
Yep.
But, I think, I just think of this wonderful lot that we shot on, the Myrna Loy lot off of Beverly. And there were 2 sound stages, and I think we had 1 sound stage, and it was just all of us and our crew every day and just making these little things. And it was very special. So, and also to have worked with such a genuine, wonderful person as Raviv. I mean, there's a lot of great respect there and fun, and just, I think we had some zany story plots, but then there were some, thankfully the writers crafted some heartfelt moments that we were also able to play. And I think he was like the perfect son. So, that's what I remember. Yeah. I don't remember anything about the hose. I do remember like one of the most fun scenes was playing like laser ball or laser tag or something.
All right, I got another one for you. Here we go. What do you remember from being on set right here? Can you see that?
King of Queens, I think we shot that down in Marina del Rey. Again, like my first sitcom that I ever did, I did with Leah Remini in a show called First Time Out. And she was fantastic, remained fantastic. I wish I could spill some dirt on people, but, she was hilarious always, super smart, great actress. I just think she brought it. And then, she was just also, as Kevin was, and I did 2 different characters in 2 different episodes of King and Queens. And for this particular role, I told him, I already auditioned for that. They want to see you again. So I auditioned and booked it. But both Kevin and Leah were like super welcoming and just kind. And, there was no star stuff. There was no weirdness. So they were great. And then my on-camera wife was hilarious and fabulous. And like I learned about her in the process of working with her that week. And she had been through some life stuff so you never know who you're working with. So anyway, lovely person. And then to later see her be a freaking superstar on Silicon Valley. She's just an amazing actress. So you're always hoping, no matter who you work with, that everybody has some blossoming career, that they continue to work, because we know how great everybody is. And then, thankfully she continues to work. So.
All right, I got a couple more here. Here's the next one. What do you remember right here?
This one, this was great. I came in, I tell a lot of my students this story, but I came in with a character choice of being guilty. I think my first line was, I thought this was more of a meet and greet type deal. Mm-hmm. And I'm exaggerating right now, but and that's the way I played it, and that's the way I booked it. And then as we were working on the rehearsal, Greg Daniels, the showrunner and the director for that day, came over. He says, "What if your guy is just like overconfident, completely just?" And I said, "Let me try that." And we did a camera blocking pass, and he went,
yeah.
And I knew, because I got what he was saying. I said, "Oh, I've never thought of that. I've never tried that." So again, something I share with students, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to give the directors what they want in the audition.
Mm-hmm.
So they can see that they can work with you. So I love that choice. And that's, on the day, the next take we started shooting. So I was thrilled to be able to keep that playfulness alive. I was super grateful to work with Steve Carell that day because the night before were the Golden Globes and he just won a Golden Globe. So he's showing me texts from the most famous people in the world and president of the United States, stuff like that. He's like, look at this one saying congratulations.
Oh my
So the
goodness.
loveliest guy. And then we would also they would let the tape roll at the end of these big boardroom scenes. And he would start improvising. And, within 3 seconds, nobody could keep a straight face.
Yeah.
So that was pretty great. The last thing I'll tell you about The Office was, and this never happens, prior to shooting, he grabbed me, Greg Daniels grabbed myself and the other 2 regional managers, and he kind of talked a little bit about our backstories. And he said to the heavier set guy, he says, you've probably been with the company 25 years. You're not going anywhere. You're in Eastern Pennsylvania somewhere. We don't know where you're at. And the good looking guy, Chip, he says, you're a guy in the weeds waiting for everybody to kind of, kill themselves, and you're going to make your move and you're going to climb up to upper management. And then he said, Craig, you probably have naked pictures of the president of the company in a vault somewhere. There's no reason you should be working for Dunder Mifflin. You're a disgrace. And so that dialogue never happens on shows. You book your thing, you show up, you do what you kind of did at your audition. They may give you an adjustment, but there's no discussing backstories. But so what a wonderful day to shoot on that show. And then they would repeatedly call me, hey, we're thinking about bringing your character back. Are you available? Yes. And then they would not bring it back.
Well, it's hard to bring you back. I mean, you said, hey, he's sleeping with, I should have slept with the boss too.
Right.
All right, last one here. What do you remember right here, my friend? Look at you. Look at that stud. Look at that.
Yeah. Ripped. Those are drawn in makeup abs.
Sprayed on.
Yeah, this was very silly. I pitched this to the head writers, and they were like, this is wild and weird. Well, let's do it. How do we do it? And I just came up with, what if I'm just coming out of the shower? And they just thought, all right, that's great. Yeah, that's perfect. And so I had to go through hair and makeup, and they squirted me down after. And so, yeah, we did it a couple times. Very silly. Very silly.
Look at that. Look at that. What a stud. What a stud. Craig, thank you so much again for your time. You're a wonderful guest, and you're forever a friend of the show. How can people get in touch with you and just hear from you? Stay up to date? None of that?
No, I'm kidding. If they want. Yeah, they can find me on Instagram. Yeah. That's about it. Yeah.
All right. What's your Instagram?
I think it's Craig Anton. I don't know. I don't really hand it out. I'm nearly 85 years old.
You're like, do you still use MySpace? I mean, I'll go ahead.
Mainly on Friendster. Yeah. I think Craig Anton on Instagram. Yeah. I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of the Reyes Reflection podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors, ARAVE Cards, Jocko Fuel, Mad Rabbit Tattoo Aftercare, and Smackin' Sunflower Seeds for supporting today's episode. And to all our listeners, remember, may you live, may you love, and may you thrive. I'm Oprah as a dude, and I love you all.